Right, so welcome everybody. Let's start please with our council blessing, and Councillor Warwick will lead us off on that. Thank you.
Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana, I ngā tāki ki mua o mātou aro, e pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau, mahara haupai mō ngā hapori, I mahi nei mātu. Me kaha hoki mātou, katoa ki whai hua, kia tōtika tā mātou mahi, mā te maia, te tiro whakamua, me te hirihiri, ka taia te arahi, e roto e te kati kotahitanga me te aroha.
Thank you. We have apologies today from Hurawai-Paki, Councillor Rob Coford, and Councillor Hanford. We hope you're doing okay, Councillor Hanford. She's not feeling well. And, she is here, but she's online. And Kim Tahiwi is also online via Zoom. So we have two people online today. So only two apologies from Hurawai-Paki and Rob Coford. Could I have someone to move those apologies?
Sorry, Liz. Liz.
Yes.
Apologies from Simon Black, and I'm standing in his place.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Apology from Simon Black. Any other apologies? Someone to move those, please. Councillor Pravanov, seconded by Councillor Kirby. Thank you. Oh, all those in favour? All right. Thank you. Any declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda? No. Public speaking time. Do we have John Le Haville here today? Would you like to speak?
Is it switched on?
Yes, it is,
yeah,
yes.
Okay. Right, I'd like briefly just to raise some points in relation to the older person housing. I understand there's going to be a second report, so some of these issues may well be being addressed, and I'm sure your staff are beavering away in the background. However, very briefly, as I've only got limited time, the dilemma as I see it is that capital ratepayers are subsidising older person housing in the tune of over at least 500,000 a year and rising. The stock is mainly, in many cases, is not fit for purpose. Older person housing sites are underutilised and not considered economic to intensify for additional older person housing. There's no provision by way of a sinking fund to redevelop or replace units, as I understand it. So the solution that seems to be being proposed is to transfer the units into a community housing provider in order to operate income-related rents and gain the government subsidy, which is the difference between IRR and the market rent. Assuming this can be used to reduce operational costs to the community. And assuming it also doesn't really allow for redevelopment or replacement of the units long term. The funding dilemma, it's not clear where or when the funding for works, especially to replace the units over time, is going to be available, even if a future CPH is created. National's policy, as far as I can understand it so far, while supporting CHPs and local solutions, does not appear to offer any additional funding for these, which raises concerns about how to raise funding to increase the availability and supply of older person housing. It really needs consideration of a much broader range of solutions. Obsolescence in housing. In the past, there were formulas that at least looked at the economic basis upon which you would decide the viability of rehabilitation against renewal. And in very general terms, in crude and general terms, it might be considered that around 60% of the cost of renewal would it still be viable to rehabilitate. And obviously there are examples sometimes in the UK of buildings that are from the 11th, 16th and later centuries that were renewed and rehabilitated and are still going. However, you can obviously modify these calculations to include other factors. For example, in Genoa in the past, there was a 120% grant given to preserve certain historic areas. And in WCC Housing Upgrade Project, of which I was part of at some stage, some projects probably passed the 60% mark in terms of the cost of redevelopment, but redevelopment wasn't really a viable proposition because it was pretty doubtful that you could actually develop at the same sort of intensity and in the same way. In terms of design, possibly 2 to 3% of the general population is wheelchair bound. Older people probably have a higher percentage. Maybe 20% of the population is disabled to some extent at some stage in their life. So obviously it's desirable to have universal design solutions, but not necessarily wholesale wheelchair solutions. It's also possible to allow some flexibility within units to adapt to wheelchair conditions, for example, through flexible kitchen design. And obviously there's other sensible solutions like having low entry showers, etc. But it's important to consider the design in all these aspects. In terms of cost, cost is normally the driving force in terms of trying to get to the lowest common denominator, but I would caution against this from my experience, possibly of 45 years of working in social housing. But the initial cost, low cost, is not the solution, and you need to consider quality, sustainability, adaptability, and resilience long term. No one's going to remember the cost savings you made at the time, but they will remember the stuff-ups you made and why the thing doesn't work in the long term.
True.
In terms of the asset management plan, I'm not very clear about where the financials come from, and I'm assuming that it doesn't actually allow for complete renewal and replacement, and I don't know if there's any allowance for a sinking fund. I guess that's as far as I would go at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Halliday.
Look, hi John, great to see you and thank you for the information. Just clarifying, you are aware this is only stage one of the process?
Yeah, I am aware of that, and I should have added at the end that I'm assuming that some of these issues and factors are being considered in stage 2. I hope they are.
Look, they are. Like, I'm having read the reports and everything. The stage 2 is really we're going to be looking at what next with these properties. No decisions have been made as such in regards to disposal of what we are going to do next, other than that they've been currently upgraded. Are you aware that we've upgraded about 80%
yeah,
of the
I
housing stock?
understand that. I've actually read the report. I guess my overall issue is, as in lots of things, there seems to be a lack of a long-term strategy. I mean, if you look at infrastructure, it's not just at a local government, but it's a national government level. There seems to be a complete lack of long-term strategy around infrastructure, housing in general, and you go from one swing to one side to the, and you're always dependent on a particular fund being available at a particular time, and it never continues. And if you think back, the Housing Innovation Fund was abandoned at some stage, and then they introduced, social housing unit or something, and that disappeared. So the funding's really never been consistent, and there's never been a consistency about long term about what you actually need and what you should be providing.
Could I answer that question, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Hearing what you're saying, John, that was identified in the last triennium, that there had been a lack of direction, I suppose, in this space. That led to our housing needs assessment, the overall housing strategy, and what I think is a very, very proactive report. One of the things we're getting back today is the asset management plan with regards to those particular properties, and asset management plans around our halls, around our aquatic centres. These are things that have been lacking in the past, and I fully appreciate that. But I think we're actually, my own personal opinion is we are heading in that right direction, but I do appreciate you keeping an eye on things in regards to that.
I wasn't suggesting it was a criticism of this particular council. I was suggesting more in general there seems to be a lack of continuity and long-term strategy, and we seem to swing from, either you're selling off houses or you're building more houses or you're going for one particular market or another.
Yep.
There doesn't seem to be, and what we need is actually long-term stability and some sort of overall agreement between all the parties about where we're going. Otherwise, it's just going to be chaos forever.
Look, I'm just thankful we've still got them. You know, we haven't actually flicked them on. I think the average percentage of land coverage is around about 20%. So we've got a lot of leeway to expand that. The question's going to be how we do that. And it'd be great to have your feedback through that process as well.
Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of solutions, and obviously, if you think about how simplicity is operating, you know, they can deliver for various reasons something like 20% of the actual current building costs just by tightening up the system and how they're doing it. So you need really, I mean, another solution that happens in London, for example, is, and it's nothing to do with older people housing, but a group, I think the voluntary, go around and identify particular unused properties, which often are because the owner can't afford to do anything with them. So they actually go in and suggest ways and fund the alterations, whatever, on the basis that they have to provide housing for homeless or whoever it is over a certain period of time. And then eventually, obviously, the landlord gets some value in terms of the capital increase value of the property. So there's all sorts of innovative ways you can do it. And the other thing, I think, is there's potential to create more suitable housing. I mean, a lot of elderly people who are in large houses who can't afford to do anything. They've got a capital asset, but they can't actually got the finance to do anything. And there's a potential there to subdivide and create smaller units. You know, but obviously you need to modify a district plan, and you need to have the people to do all that sort of thing. But I mean, there are inventive solutions, not just the obvious ones of providing, council-created housing or whatever it is.
And I'm hoping, well, my general feeling is that we're open to those sorts of conversations and quite looking forward to see where this all goes. So thank you for that. That's all for me. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, John. Given that your involvement with it was Wellington City Council,
Yeah, I've been involved in social housing ever since I've been an architect in Scotland for about 20 years with community-based housing associations and etc. And Wellington City Council with Dwell formerly as Wellington Housing Trust and various, and worked with iwi and I specifically worked in a housing corporation with non-corporation housing under the Housing Innovation Project, all up throughout New Zealand, from north to south, Invercargill to up to Bluff to Cape Rang, and with iwi organisations as well. And I have worked for an iwi organisation as well in Otaki.
So do you generally favour council being a social housing, senior housing provider, or are you looking that the council should be more of a facilitator?
Well, I think the council should be much more of a facilitator. I think there are problems in the council delivering housing, and other people are maybe better qualified and more able, and not so hamstrung by bureaucracy and having to do certain things publicly. I mean, the developer doesn't hang about waiting for consulting people, do they? They just go and do things.
Yes. Well, to a social cost sometimes, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
It's a difficult balance, but you know, I think there's room for lots of different players and different solutions. I mean, what's the key to sustainability is diversity, and I think that's the answer.
Cool. Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much, John. We're very lucky to have someone in our community with such a vast amount of experience in this area, and I look forward to further contributions from you, because this is going to be a long process to resolve issues in the housing space. We've got stage 2 of the report, and we will also be discussing housing as part of the long-term plan. So we do welcome contributions from you as we work through the issues. So thank you very much for attending today and giving us your thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Right, now we move on to members' business. Any leaves of absence or matters of an urgent nature? No, no updates. So in that case, we'll move right on to our first report, which is the Zeal Education Trust Year 8 report. I'd just like to, before we start this item, just reiterate what I think has been sent out to you via email, that This is just a report back. It is not a discussion on future funding of Zeal, which will be attended to as part of the long-term plan process. So this is just really Zeal fulfilling their obligations to council in relation to the funding that was given, just reporting back on their last year's performance. So we welcome members of Zeal today, and would you like to kick off, Morag? Thank you.
Ata Māori o koutou, ko Morag Taumalia tāne taku ingoa. So we're here today to present the report, which is an overview of the delivery, including achievements and impact of Zeal Education Trust for the Year 8 contract. I'll just introduce a few people. So on my left here is Emma Haxton. So she's a youth development specialist and she supports our Connected Communities team in this space. And down the back we have Jessie Boyce, who is the Chief Executive of Zeal Education Trust, and Hamish Campbell, who's the Kapiti Zeal Manager. I'll just quickly run through a few things and then I'll hand over to Zeal. But Zeal have a contractual requirement to report annually on their achievements on the following 5 outcomes. So a responsive and robust service, a diverse youth community utilising the Youth Development Centre, a responsive and enhanced model and satellite services, good youth participation in decision making, and strong community engagement. Council have done an assessment of the Year 8 report and have concluded that Zeal have achieved all the contract deliverables and made a really good impact on each of the 5 outcomes. This is the same as Year 1 to 7 as well of the contract. And so I'll just hand over now to Zeal and they can continue, and they've got a bit of a presentation for you.
Hello.
You're
Great.
on.
Yeah, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia orana, malula lei. I'm Jesse, and my heritage is from Puka Puka in the Cook Islands on my mum's side, and from Hapai on my dad's side, my Tongan side. Currently living in Tamaki Makaurau, and yeah, thank you for having me this morning. I will hand it over to Hamish to share more on this year's outcomes and highlights for the last year, and then I'll share some supporting thoughts and comments off the back of his report back. So kia ora.
Tēnā koutou. Ko Hamish Tako Ingoa, Zeal Manager of Zeal Kapiti, Manager of Zeal Kapiti. I just want to just begin by just acknowledging the people of this land, Ngāti Raukawa, Atiawa, and Ngāti Taua. Kia ora. I just want to reflect quickly on a phenomenal year, I think, for us in Year 8. And I just want to run through some highlights. So beginning with our after-school Hangs program, we saw 3,134 unique visits from young people into our space. And this is actually double the number that we received the year before, which we're super proud of. We believe contributing factors to this growth includes our consistent presence within the mainstream colleges in our area. We were able to run 17 activations across that year within the colleges, as well as connecting with almost 600 Year 8 students before they headed into Year 9, which really helped develop relationship with them. We became visible to them. They understood a little bit more about who Zeal is and what's on offer for them. The other highlight for us is that we catered to 242 young people through our creative programs across the year, including within Zeal facility in Parapara Umu, but also programs running in Otaki. And I just want to drill down into those programs a little bit to highlight our Akonga program, which is a work readiness program. Since 2021 till now, we've had 65 students participate in that program, which is a 20-week program, so it's a quite intensive program where we can go quite deep with these young people. and that offers them the opportunity for work experience, barista training, wraparound support, and NCA credits. And we've also had, from that program, at least 85 to 90% of those students engage in work experience. And we've had at least 15 or so local cafes take them in and give them about 5 weeks or 5 sessions of work experience within their cafes. And through our funding, we're able to pay those students for their time. So it's a good carrot there for them to engage. Other highlights for us is we've had an increase in the number of groups using our facility. We've had at least 8 different community groups use Zeal facility on a regular basis. Our support of community events has increased significantly as well, coming out of COVID. The opportunities to support music events, local fairs, with our stage, with our sound equipment, with our coffee cart, and having young people engaged in running all those things has been amazing for us, just to re-engage with the community in some ways after COVID. Our latest survey, we run a Zeal survey every year for our core young people. This year we had our biggest uptake of that survey. We managed to get 74 responses, which for us is massive. And what we hear from that survey in terms of like what are concerns that young people have, number one concern for them, with 54% of respondents saying that mental health is a particular issue for them. 41% highlighted education with their school or kura. 34% said that COVID was still a disruption for them. 31% said issues relating to family and whānau. And 31% highlighted physical health as well as an issue. And what we as Zeal feel we're offering to young people in light of those concerns and struggles is our strength is that we offer a safe place of belonging. And that kind of rolls off the tongue quite easily, but it's core to us to provide a safe environment for young people to flourish. We have youth workers on site who support young people through sometimes some very difficult times. We offer deeper connections, not only to their peers, but also to the wider community. Our programs offer increased confidence and skill development, and we're constantly on the lookout for opportunities for our young people to grow. And I just wanted to read out a couple of comments from young people that they made from that survey. And these, I'm just reading these how they were written. I think that the workers always make sure you feel safe, included, supported, and taken care of. Zeal has allowed me to develop skills, friendships, and community. I have become a trained barista, and I got a job through the Zeal course. And I'd just like to finish with it's a story, but it's also it's a statement that a young person made on our behalf about their experience of Zeal. And this is a phenomenal young person who's a part of more of the music side of Zeal. They said, "Zeal hasn't just helped me as a musician. It is the reason why I am one. Zeal gives young artists and performers an opportunity that nowhere else in Kapiti does. It allows us to practice and showcase our passions and art completely free of judgment. Before attending my first musician's lounge at Zeal, I wasn't confident enough to tell people I was a musician. But after working with Zeal and performing there to encouraging crowds, I am excited to show people my art, and I'm now thinking about music as a possible career path." Not only is Zeal an incredibly kind, nurturing, and uplifting organisation, they are incredibly professional. The equipment we are able to use there is also a very special privilege for us, rangatahi, and the staff are always excited to teach us something new. As an autistic Māori, I have never once felt anything but aroha during my time at Zeal, and I am so deeply grateful I've been able to have that in my life. Myself, my whānau, and all my friends cannot stress how much aroha we have for Zeal and how vital it is to all rangatahi, especially artists in our community. and that young person his name is Tama. And I just want to just share our vision. Our vision is that all young people in Aotearoa are living full lives of meaning and purpose. And this is a big vision, and it's a big vision on purpose. And this is what we chase and strive for every day, because our young people deserve this dream to be realised. Kia ora, I'll pass on to Jesse.
Yeah, kia ora, Hamish. Thank you for that. And just want to acknowledge our Zeal Kapiti staff who journey with and work alongside these young people every day, and they're doing a fantastic job. So I want to acknowledge our staff. Also want to acknowledge council staff for your support of us over the years and around this table too. Your support has been fantastic during that period. I'll just add a couple of things out of the report. One thing to note is around how the council dynamic and income has shifted, where in year one, 97% of our income was through council. Last year, Zeal had fundraised 42% of our income, and council was contributing 58%. So from my perspective, a clear indication that Zeal's pursuit is to change that dynamic and to make sure that there is multiple streams coming into that funding funnel. Secondly, also just wanted to speak to some audited reports that came through recently that speak of the financial stability of overall Zeal. Before depreciation, we finished the year at a $12,000 surplus. And that was an improvement on last year, which I'm sure you can acknowledge was a difficult one, where we had a $22,000 deficit before depreciation. So things heading in the right direction in that space too. Wanted to also speak to the level of impact. So as Hamish would have mentioned, 3,200 unique young people through the space in the Kapiti from the Kapiti region. So that speaks to the level of impact we're having, the young people that we are reaching. We're reaching young people to a deeper level through our more focused youth development programs. So that's 60 young people a term. 90% of those who go through our re-engagement into education and training are engaged into real life work scenarios. Which is fantastic from my perspective, from an impact piece. We're currently in the space of increasing resourcing to identifying more local streams of funding outside of council. So that's a big piece of work for us over the next 6 to 8 months. I guess I just wanted to finish by adding that, well, I do have the floor and I've got the microphone, and no one can take it from me right now. I acknowledge this is about the last year, but as we look forward, know that there is long-term planning afoot, and know that there is some important decisions around priority investment that need to be made at this table. With my hat on, I would like to strongly advocate for and support investment into young people of the region. Not only young people, but the services that support them. I know that there are still outcomes that council need to meet in regards to their statutory requirements, and I just want to strongly support that investment, that careful consideration be made to the investment that continues on into our young people of Kapiti. That investment will be returned if they feel cared for, safe and developed in this region. Thank you again for the opportunity to share. I tried to be as succinct as possible, and look forward to taking any questions that you may have. Kia ora.
Thank you very much, guys. What great words, and that the testimonial from Tama was pretty awesome. Well done. Do we have any questions? Bearing in mind that we will, as I said, be having further discussions around Zeal and the long-term planning context. Do we have some questions? Councillor Wilson.
Yep. Thanks, Hamish. Jesse. Yeah, I reiterate, that letter from Tama was superb, just wonderful. Just wondering in terms of referral, so the age group that you're dealing with there, do you refer any of your kids on to the likes of Work Ready Kapiti, for instance? So I would sort of see that perhaps as a transition to employment. So and those who might be struggling with some things to KYS and other agencies. So I was just wondering if you're seeing Zeal as kind of like the one-stop shop, or you can refer people through to these other groups.
Absolutely, so we're not a one-stop shop. But yeah, our youth workers, the role of youth workers within our context is to get alongside young people, figure out what's going on for them. If things do arise, our job is to find what the next best step is for them. So yeah, we're not a health provider. We're not crisis intervention. So, and we have amazing organisations locally that are those things. KYS, CAMS. And people like Work Ready Kapiti, we try to work closely with them and support what they're doing as much as possible. And if we come across young people that we think would benefit from what they're doing, then yes, absolutely. Referral is probably too strong a word. But definitely aware of those places, and it's our job to make sure that young people get what they need.
Sorry, I'll just also add to that. So in line with that, a part of our vision and our evolution as Zeal in Kapiti is to be a connector of services. So we are very open to the strengthening of collaboration. And our vision is that Zeal is a youth development umbrella that brings together youth support services in a cohesive way. We see the sector will benefit from that, but ultimately young people will benefit from that. That's my addition to that.
Councillor Spires.
Thank you. I'm just looking at capacity. I'm just wondering if you've outgrown the premises that you're living in with the youth space there at the moment. You mentioned over 3,000 young people have gone through there, and so I'm just looking at the capacity, and have you got enough space down there, because you must be limited to how many young people you can have there at one time?
I would say we haven't reached capacity of the space. I think I guess clarification around the 3,000 number. So that's unique visits to Zeal. So I think an average day at Hangs for us looks at about somewhere between 25 to early 30s can be in the space at once. So the capacity of the building is 140. It would probably be detrimental to have 140 young people in the space.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And so the space works very well for us in terms of the programming we're running and what we can achieve in that space. Yeah.
So sorry, and I know I'm making a lot of additions. As an addition to that, yes, it's a capacity of 140. For events, we have had up to at capacity, so 150 in the building. During youth development programming time, which is after schools, I've seen 20 people fight over the same basketball outside. So it is around that 50 mark. It can get up to that point where it's feeling really, really heavy. We do have a capacity to some of our programs, which can be up to 20. So anything more than that compromises the quality of the work and the ability to build those relationships that we need to for young people. But all to say that, yes, the space can work for now. That doesn't limit our vision as to where we see we can coordinate with other youth services to make sure that our young people are getting what they need in the district.
Great, thank you. And just wondering, are you going to go out and have some more concerts or events at the skateboarding facilities around the district? I know they were very popular in the past.
It's definitely something that we enjoyed running, 100%. And yeah, it's always in the back of my mind to reignite those things. Yeah, it's something that I want to do, but there's always just weighing up the capacity that we have and all the other things that are going on as well.
It's just that I know the young people really enjoy those skateboarding competitions, and it would be good to see them come back again.
Yeah,
That's all. That's all
good.
for me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for that.
Thanks.
Councillor Halliday.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. Great to see you guys. Good to see the progress and the way things are moving. Love the report back. Just a few quick questions. With regards to afternoon hangs, how often during the week are they open? Are they like 5 days sort of thing, or is it sort of 1 or 2 days a week, or what's the story with that again?
We do a hang space in Otaki. So on Mondays we run after schools is mostly our programming. So barista, photography, live sound happens in the space. Youth council use our space on a Monday as well at around about the same time. And so then Tuesday we're in Otaki College using their canteen, and we strategically made that decision to try and widen the reach that we have within our area. It's very difficult for Otaki young people to get down to us. There was a period where we were transporting young people down, but there was a real ceiling to that in terms of how many we could squeeze into a van. And so being in Otaki College is really good. So that picture that's on screen now is Otaki College. That's the canteen, how we set it up. So we have to set that up every week to make that space work. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're open after school for our hangs in Parapara Umu Centre.
Down Parapara Umu, that's great, thank you. And do you sort of ramp up programs over the school holidays as such? Like we just had a school holidays as such. Do you sort of open longer hours, sort of 5 days a week as such? Or
we usually try to run a holiday program within one of the weeks of the school holidays. We open up. Mostly it looks, at the moment it's just like hangs, but during the holidays, and it's a longer period of time. And what we found was, we would put a lot of energy into running particular activities, but
people just want to come hang.
There wasn't a huge amount of buy-in to those, though. And when we just opened up for hangs, we got a lot more young people coming through.
I picked it as that sort of casual sort of space. Most holidays where people can just come and meet up with friends and that sort of stuff there as well.
Yeah, and we've added, through the Creative Community Scheme, actually, we've been able to run hip-hop classes in the holidays as well, which has been awesome. So we have hip-hop running in Otaki, but it's actually been really, really good to be able to bring it down and actually have that operating during the holidays in Parapara Umu as well.
Cool. I noted that the reference to homeschooling networks and that sort of stuff, which was really, really cool. I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest. And I'm just curious, has that been a recent engagement with them? How many years have you been engaged with them, or is that something you've sort of picked up recently?
It's them using the space is actually quite recent. But we've always had a good relationship with the homeschool community. In a previous role, I had a lot of homeschool young people that were a part of what we did. And so connections there just naturally crossed over. The homeschooling network in Kapiti is quite large, and those young people don't have the same opportunities that young people do at college. So we get quite a lot of them using our creative programs, which is really good. And that's just progressed into them coming in and actually having the whole Zeal facility for their community for a couple of hours on a Friday. And it's a great way for their families to connect and their young people to socialise and build connection.
Cool, that's great. That's me. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I also just wanted to clear up any misconceptions people may have about hangs. It's not just a light program. It actually has incredible intention around creating safety and connection amongst young people, where they may not be receiving that at home, or they may not be feeling that at school, but they're able to see it at a community space like Zeal. And so that's the intention behind it. And that's, just wanted to clear that up.
Councillor Kirby.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the report and seeing the good work that you're doing across Kapiti. I was interested in your comments around the collaboration and the idea of a youth development umbrella. and connector of services, because I think that is an issue here in Kapiti. So can you just give some further thoughts into what that might look like? I know that's a little bit beyond a Year 8 report, so I'm looking for your permission on this question, Madam Chair, on whether you want to expand that a little bit, because I see in this report that you're talking about you're doing some collaborative programs with Horatapai, you've done some stuff with Parapara Omu School, obviously trying to work with Work Ready Kapiti. I know there's a lot of other youth services and youth programs that are around, and the ability to connect things together would be really helpful in terms of that space. Do you want to? Can you just talk a bit to that?
I'll share very, very briefly, knowing the core kaupapa of this conversation. But very briefly, our goal is the support and well-being of young people. We know that works best with across services, so we don't feel like we're outworking our vision as an organisation if the wider sector aren't working well together as a youth development sector. So what our commitment is to beyond this year is to invest more focus into bringing that coordination together where we can. It's from our perspective, it's going to be around increasing our focus on those stakeholder relationships. We're going to need some support from around this table around how we can firstly paint that picture of what cohesion looks like, and then help shape practically, resource-wise, relationship-wise, how that may actually play out. But yes, our dream is that youth development for a young person wouldn't be clunky, but it would be something that'd be really easy to navigate. It'd be something that young people, schools, council, community groups, iwi, would be able to buy into. So there's actually a unified approach for how young people are coming through our system. We think Kapiti has an opportunity to be a leader in that space. That's the dream, but we just need to get through this next part first, and we'll see how we go. Is that helpful?
It's helpful. Thank you.
Great. Kia ora.
Thanks, guys, for your work, by the way, and please pass that on to your staff as well. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Could I just make a comment on that? Sorry. I guess being on the ground and just recognising like the work that other organisations are doing with young people as well. The collaboration part is actually quite tricky when you're head down, getting the mahi done. And I just want to say that the hui that we had here, I wasn't able to be at the last one, but the one before, I felt like that was a bit of a game changer. I know the reason for that hui was not necessarily the best reason, but just seeing so many people in the room, so many players that have an interest and a care for young people was really encouraging. So I just want to reiterate that call for sometimes the organisations that are doing the work on the ground may not be the best ones to kickstart that collaboration piece. So the more help that we have from council around that would be really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
I think that Councillor Lawrence sort of was going to touch on what I was going to ask, but in terms of barriers to success, barriers to more people, young people engaging, what are those barriers and how are you addressing them? If that's an appropriate question. Is there a perception, we've got close to 6,000 secondary school kids in a pretty small catchment. So what barriers do you see as taking the next step in terms of engagement or getting more people involved?
I think probably the obvious one is capacity. So I think often when people ask about this, I guess my response is the only really ceiling we have is the available people on the ground. So staffing capacity is definitely there, because if you're growing your numbers but not the people who are able to spread across those numbers, then your actual impact drops as well. And that goes along with like programming, finding the right people to engage with young people in those programs as well. And often you are asking people to step outside of their everyday life to step into a space like that. So and that can be quite a challenge to find the right people to actually engage with young people as well.
Yeah, sorry. One major one is purely resourcing. We can only our focus is to resource service delivery. So if we can raise enough funds to focus on that and to do that well, then we do, and that's what we've done. We've done the service as well. You need additional resourcing to develop a business, as you'll know. And so it's that space of additional resourcing that we need to build the right stakeholder relationships, to expand our pie, to do the marketing and the awareness stuff that we need to do to grow awareness of Zeal and Kapiti, which has a brand on its own through word of mouth, through the services to a generation that's just gone through it. But that's probably our biggest challenge. We feel like we've refined a suite of programs that are serving young people well in regards to safety, belonging, connection, early intervention. We feel like we have the right model. It's just about getting that resourcing to expand the impact of that model.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up question to that. So you're obviously in Otaki College and are supportive of Zeal and your goals and aspirations. Are you in Kapiti College and Parapara Umu College to the same extent? And if not, again, is it resourcing or is it a college issue? Or if you know, that's good.
Yeah, it's a good question. So Otaki, we have a great relationship with Otaki. So we do we do similar things at Otaki College that we do at the other colleges as well. It's just that the added thing would be that we just run our hangs from Otaki College. So other ways that we support, how we support the colleges and young people is we turn up at lunchtimes, we run karaoke, we give young people opportunities to unbelievably stand up in front of their peers and sing. I always can't believe that they do that. We create spaces where we can connect with them and almost run like a mini hangs, but during lunchtime. And we do that in all the main colleges. And we also run barista programs in the colleges when they've got the capacity and we've got the capacity. And those are part of their gateway program as well. And we support sports days, athletics days, just any time that we can be in the college and offering support. We're there.
Mayor Holbrook.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation today, and congratulations on a hugely successful year for Zeal, and just fantastic what you do, not just in those premises but out and about in the community, and your presence out there is just fantastic. My question's around the report around the outcomes. So we've got 5 outcomes that you've delivered against and succeeded in all the areas. Thank you, well done. My question is, are those outcomes similar to outcomes for other Zeal organisations? When were they developed, and do you think they're still fit for purpose? I'm wondering whether they were developed, say, before COVID, for instance, and the needs and what we might want to see from organisations such as Zeal might have changed. So do you think the outcomes need to be assessed going forward?
I think there could be room for like a reassessment, and maybe it's not so much a chuck it all out and start again, but like maybe a tweak. I think I wasn't a part of the journey of Zeal beginning, but when I reflect on those outcomes, I think a lot of them were designed around the geography of Kapiti and the unique position that our communities are in, especially around like the satellite services part of it. So I would be definitely open to them being looked at again.
Thank you. Thanks for
I think Morag would like to also make some comments on that? Thank you.
Kia ora. Yeah, I'm actually just going to pass over to Emma on that, as she was around when the outcomes were developed as well, but I understand they have changed over the life of the contract too.
Right. Okay. We can leave that. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to share just quickly off the back of that. Is if they were to be shaped, it would be based on evidence. What are we hearing from young people? Quite clear what they've told us. Mental health is a challenge. Education kura challenge. COVID disruption and whānau are challenges. So if there is a crossover of the purpose of council and the purpose of Zeal that meets those needs, that's where I see a conversation could happen in regard to that shift. But it would be based on what young people are telling us. That's how we'd approach that.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, probably Emma could add her thing.
All right. Now?
Yeah.
Emma?
Yes, kia ora. So the 5 outcomes at the beginning of the 9 years were slightly different than these. At each 3-year period, there's been a review of the outcomes, looking at a range of different things, what's going on nationally, so the national approach to youth development, evaluation in terms of what Zeal is seeing, so conversations with them, but also looking at their reporting and working with Zeal to modify those as youth development has changed over that time. Under these 5 outcomes, there are more detailed outcomes, and those have also changed over time. So there's been an evolution across time to these ones, which were set in year 7, so for the final 3 years. Right at the beginning, it was linked into the national approach, which was the Youth Development Strategy Aotearoa, which once we got to year 7 has shifted nationally in terms of what youth development is to mana tai ohi. So there is an evolution in New Zealand, and there's an evolution in terms of what we're doing to making sure that we're strategically linked to best practice youth development, and also it's a response to what's happening on the ground in Kapiti. What are young people seeing? What is Zeal seeing? What outcomes have been met? So as things moved forward, there was a huge focus right in the beginning around the development of the facility and getting young people engaged in the facility. Once we were ticking those things off, we shifted the outcomes focus. Kia ora.
Have you finished, Janet?
Yeah.
Can you switch the microphone off? Thank you. Councillor Warwick.
When Zeal first began the program, there was a bit of a lack of engagement in Otaki, and I appreciate that's increased. But I'd just be interested in, when you come back with the next report, your outlook for increased services in Otaki, because we do have a problem with transport, and how you're going to work with the other youth programs that are there, which is the barbershop and the rangatahi program, which you're already engaging with, I believe. But I would also be interested in your thoughts on a youth centre, because that's something we strive for in Otaki. So, you know, it would be great if you could email the Otaki Community Board and me about what you see as the needs of a youth centre, so because we've got a vision for library upgrade. Your expertise would be great if you could forward that to us.
I think we also have a question from Kim online. Can we get Kim?
I'm just trying to unmute. My question was similar to Shelley's question. And did you see, as you're delivering your services, a difference between the services you provide in Otaki and the ones you provide elsewhere in terms of numbers and reach? And I suppose it would, we've talked about getting in touch and bringing you into the iwi, and we've got a dedicated social services team now, so we might be able to do that a bit more, albeit at the end of your contract, unfortunately. But yeah, is there a difference you see? It just seems to me the same as Shelley, is that the services in Otaki weren't actually as large as the services elsewhere? And my second question was, in terms of the building, and apologies if this is in your report and I haven't seen it, how much time do you occupy that Zeal building in Paraparaumu, and how long is it vacant, like in terms of hours of use?
Let me try to address your first question. Yeah, in terms of our programming in Otaki, obviously with our centre being in Paraparaumu, I guess a large proportion of what we do does flow out of that centre. But our strategic decision was to try and replicate some of what we do in Otaki. And so we really feel that like, the space that we've created in the canteen at college is by no means perfect, but has been a really great vehicle for growing relationship with Otaki young people. And I know that there is discussion about a youth space in Otaki, and I think from what we have seen on the ground, young people are actually really hungry for that. And we're always being asked like, oh, when are you gonna be open more often in Otaki? But again, that's a capacity question. But in terms, I do feel like the needs, there are the differences between the needs of young people in Paraparaumu from Otaki. From the conversations we have, there's unique situations that those young people are dealing with. And sorry, Kim, to your second question about, in terms of when the use of the Zeal Centre in Paraparaumu, I think we are, it's hard to quantify. Obviously after school time, it's humming. The daytime stuff is where, the building is less occupied, but at the moment we have the homeschool network using it on the Friday. We have Tukura in our space on a Thursday. Youth council use it most Mondays. We have adult and youth bands using the space in the weekends for our rehearsal room. We often have a little bit more sporadically, but we have Challenge for Change using the building for their meetings, and their mentors have access to our building to bring their young people into it. So that's a really good advantage for them. We've had KYS, we've had Paraparaumu College, and we have Te Puna Oranga Otaki using it for their young people as well. Not regularly, but across the year they would be in quite a few times. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Kim, 100%.
No answer from Kim. All right, thank you. No more questions. Look, thank you very much, Hamish and Jessie, for coming today. As you can see, there's considerable interest around the table in Zeal's activities, and we do really look forward to having further conversations with you about what we take forward into the long-term plan. Personally, I want to congratulate you. I was involved with Zeal in its very early stages in an advisory capacity, and to me, it's just incredible the leap forward you have taken in terms of your funding in particular, managing to get you're almost 50-50 external funding now, and the growth in your activities. So I just really want to congratulate you for your performance and the fact that you've achieved all the prescribed outcomes. So well done, and please convey our thanks to everybody on the team at Zeal. And we look forward to seeing you again and having further discussions. Right, so we have a number of recommendations on the table here today, that we note the delivery of services, outcomes and results achieved for Year 8 of the Youth Development Sector contract with Zeal Education Trust, that we note that 23-24 is the final year, Year 9 of the Youth Development Centre contract with Zeal Education Trust. We note that the long-term plan 24-34 will be an opportunity to discuss the future needs of young people in Kapiti through the Youth Development Centre and associated services. Could I have someone to move those recommendations? Councillor Kirby, second Councillor Warwick. And I'll open that up for discussion now. Oh, sorry, vote on it. No, vote later. Open up for discussion, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Right,
Introduction.
discussion. Right of reply. Introduction.
I'm happy to introduce. I'll just say again, reiterate our thanks to Zeal for the work that they've put in the last year, particularly re-establishing after the interruptions and disruptions of COVID. I'm really interested in your survey and the results that came out of that in terms of the concerns that our students and rangatahi face in Kapiti. I think those provide us with some good information for moving forward. And I look forward to those conversations because youth development is an incredibly important part of our district, the support of the next generations coming through to ensure that they are able to thrive as they move on into adulthood and creating their own families and destiny, I think is a vital part of what we do as council to support that. So thank you for what you have added to our district over the last 8 years. We look forward to further conversations on what that could look like moving forward. Thank you.
Any discussion? No further discussion? All right, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. See you again soon. And now we move on to Asset Management Plan District-wide and Destination Parks. And just before we get into that, just to put this into context, so this paper is around setting the framework and the overarching principles around which we manage our district-wide and destination parks. And any funding decisions relating to that will be through the long-term plan process. So, and I also note that Councillor Hanford did request questions to come in prior to today. So given that we are now way behind in our agenda, could I ask that questions be kept to a minimum? Thank you. Right, so Mike.
Thanks, Madam Chair. In that case, I'll take the report as read, but just would like to make a couple of quick points. We did brief you on this asset management plan on the 3rd of October. Bear in mind, we do have more than 100 parks in the district, but we don't actually currently have a framework that dictates where our investment will be prioritised. So we've identified these 6 premium parks for you to elevate the level of investment, and we'll come to you through the LTP with some ideas around that. Generally speaking, the condition of these assets is okay, but they are a land of opportunity both in terms of recreation and in terms of economic development. And just to be really clear, we're coming to you next month with a couple of related asset management plans. One is on beach access ways and the other is on tracks and trails. Those are related to these because if we think about these things holistically in terms of economic development and recreation, there are some massive opportunities. That's all I really wanted to say. Thanks, Madam Chair. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions? None online? No? Oh, Jocelyn, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. On page 6, it talks about developer contributions. I'm actually wondering how this is going to work given intensification, when often that's not necessarily developers, it's individual property owners who are looking at subdividing their houses or properties.
So, Councillor, at the highest level, the open spaces strategy, which is our blueprint for open space in the district, is extremely sensitive to intensification and growth, and so there are some measures in there that ensure that we retain a ratio of open space, of which there are 9 different categories, by the way, and so I'm confident that that the mechanisms we have in place through that strategy actually do accommodate and account for growth.
So it's more about actually, I suppose it's about developer contributions.
Okay. So there are two. So don't forget, we also have financial or reserve contributions as well as development contributions. We have some work on those underway at the moment and have some advice coming to you around that. And Chris and I joined up on that with respect to how we do DCs and how we do reserve contributions, and how the two must have integrity, and we mustn't in any way diminish our ability to fund through those two mechanisms.
Okay, thank you. So my other question relates to, I suppose, the funding made available to these destination parks. I see on page 14, so this is in the appendices, the time, I suppose, the money that's been allocated there, that differs quite considerably from what is in the long-term plan. And I'm just wondering who's been consulted on these new sets of figures.
I'll have to check for you, councillors, that those numbers pretty much come out of the LTP. It could be that they've been adjusted since the published LTP from 3 years ago. Yeah,
so to start off with, I think in 2020, this current year, I've printed it out, there's meant to be $400,000 spent. Has that been spent? And then 500,000 in the next financial year. And so what's shown here is quite different.
So what has been spent and what are budgeted are different things. So the capex that you're talking about, which is specifically for the development of Waikanae Park, that is currently being spent. It has not yet been all spent. So that is very dynamic and shouldn't be related to this in any great detail.
So sorry, but it says a development plan implementation capex. So that to me, that seems to me to be.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the 100 grand in the first.
Yes.
In the first line.
Yes.
I don't know if any of my troops down the back can answer that specifically.
Could we perhaps take that offline?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, councillor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councillor Provanov, I think you. Right. No other questions? In that case, we have two recommendations that that we note the asset management plan district-wide and destination parks at enclosure 1, and approve in principle this asset management plan as the overarching principal document underpinning investment in district-wide or destination parks. Could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Mayor Holbrook, seconder. Councillor Kirby, any discussion?
Yeah, just very briefly through you, Madam Chair. Congratulations on the suite of work that's happening, really getting these nailed and organised, and some really clear, well presented information, and also the way you've engaged with us in the development of them through discussions and briefings and through our subcommittee. So thanks very much to the team.
Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, again, just actually reiterating Mayor Holborough's words. Fantastic pieces of work, really clear, really interesting. All I would ask is that with the community boards and councillors' involvement in their relative wards as these parks, everything are being progressed, would be much appreciated. But I see that sort of engagement as part of the kaupapa of how we've been working together as a team this triennium. Should be a bit of a no-brainer, but quite looking forward to those conversations. Other than that, fantastic piece of work.
Councillor Wilson.
I just want to reiterate the reiteration. I'll reiterate the reiteration. Yeah, so having chaired Parks Division at GW for 6 years, I can tell you one of the immutable truths of parks is that there's never enough money. So what we had to do there, and we clearly have to do it here too. It's all about prioritising. So, and I think what the strategy does is it gives you a blueprint for being able to do those prioritising, right? So, yeah, I just think this is a terrific way forward. So there you go. I've reiterated the reiteration.
Thank you.
I'm a reiterator.
Councillor Provanov.
Yeah, so sorry, a supplementary question. So obviously our parks and reserves are a key part of our community, and I suppose given our increasing population, you know, their development will continue as well as possibly some of the expansion of it. And I suppose having, being involved in some of these spaces, I hear all the time that staff are very under the pump in terms of their ability to basically to do what they want to do. So I'm just wondering whether staff numbers are going to be increased in this area as well as looking at the assets, so that what can be developed, what can be achieved, is what's been planned.
Councillor Pravanov, we've finished question time. We're now in debate. So can you perhaps ask that question offline if you wish to follow up on it?
Okay, so if I'd like to rephrase that, then I'd say, I fully support this this report, but I would like to see that staff numbers, or I suppose the ability for staff, that to achieve what we're wanting to achieve is actually put in place in relation to the staff abilities, and numbers.
I think that should come through in the long-term plan discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think it's a key part to it.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Halliday, you've already spoken. Is it a quick one?
It is very quick, Madam Chair. I'll just have a quick look at my notes. I just wanted to bring attention, just jot it down. A while ago at Te Whakaminanga, there was representation from a group that were doing rongoa up in Otaki there, and they had expressing concerns about the drying up the river and the fact that after 8 generations there were some issues there. And I just wanted to flag it for council officers, perhaps maybe follow that through on that. Happy to take that offline. Thank you.
Thank you. Right of reply. Thank you. So I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on. Thank you. Oh, you're staying for the next one too. Aquatics facilities. And again, this is in the same nature as the previous one. We're just talking about an overarching document here with the details to be worked through as part of the long-term plan process. So, Mike, would you like to introduce this?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Look, we did workshop this on the 19th of September with you. The assets are generally in pretty good nick, especially for their age, in Waikanae and Otaki in particular. They're well managed and maintained. You've met Steve Miller sitting over the back there. We do have a couple of challenges around climate change, and it's specifically around mitigation and our gas, and also the changing rooms at Otaki that pretty much leak heat. So Steve's looking at that. We have some thinking around that. And as we upgrade and renew the facilities, that's the time for us to look at the energy and make sure we're doing things and making the most of the work that's going to be open at the time. So it's working pretty well. They're in good nick. I think this Steve's asset management plan here is a good summation. And have you take any questions, Madam Chair?
Any questions? No questions? No one online? No? Councillor, hang on. Councillor Halliday, you have a question.
It's interesting, actually. I'm just looking through my questions going, yeah, that's not really actually relevant to an asset management plan. But one question I did have related to the report was 3.5, and the report talks to values. And that's page 50. Sorry, it must be, that must be the appendix report as such. It talks about Te Ao Māori, which is Māori worldview. And it talks to reflecting the needs of and aspirations of mana whenua through our operations and assets. Again, I would have thought Māori worldview would have been more around the tangata whenua perspective. I think just got to be a little bit careful about potentially the wording and how it is. I'd hate for it to be picked up as maybe a throwaway comment rather than a thought out comment per se. Just flagging it, that's all. Happy to take that discussion offline.
Thank you. Councillor Pravanov.
Yes, so thank you. So in the previous report, there was a deterioration curve, and there's also one in this here. In the previous one, it said that the data wasn't particularly reliable. I'm just wondering why that is, and is this useful information for us to be having? Because we also have it in relation to our housing later in the day.
I think it's important to look at these assets classes all quite distinctly. So when it comes to running a pool, if you think about a pool and all the stuff that happens in a pool, preventive and proactive maintenance is really, really important for stuff like pumps and pipes and valves. And if those fail, it can be quite spectacular. So so Steve's recently put all of our data into a system called SPM, which actually spits out a preventative maintenance program for how we catch stuff before it fails. That doesn't always work, but generally speaking, it's a pretty solid. It's pretty solid, and you can do that with mechanical stuff. With stuff like destination parks, where sometimes the assets are actually green in nature or not as mechanical, it's much more difficult to actually get good data to support asset decisions. And it's going to be the same when we come next month when we come to tracks and trails and beach access ways. It's even more difficult. So I think it's quite important, council, to look at these asset classes as quite distinct. They have different drivers and different personalities, if you like.
Okay, thank you. That's a good explanation. So I suppose my other question, I know this has come up before, is about looking at renewable energy for these pools. And in this report it talks about, I suppose, the difficulty with the heat that builds up in the pool here. And I'm just wondering, are there ways to actually utilise that, capture that heat to actually heat the water in the pool, and then by using other renewable sources? Because I'm aware that at the Otaki pool that there was a solar heating system there and it was taken out.
So we're looking at all three of our pools with respect to energy, as I mentioned before. Yes, there is excessive heat generated here, and Steve is looking at heat exchangers and that kind of stuff at the moment. When we're ready, we'll come to you with some ideas around that. We have more fundamental issues at the other two pools where we're still burning gas. So we, like everybody else, we want to get away from that as quickly as we can, but it needs to be done in a way that works for the business. The other thing is, whenever we do something major like that, we actually have to close the pool. So it's easy with Waikanae because we've got the off-season, but with the other two, what we're trying to do is not disrupt our customers as much as you can. But I can assure you that we're looking carefully at that and how we might synchronise that work so that we get a good balance of reducing carbon, getting decent prices, but without disturbing our customers so far as is possible. It's impossible to get all three of those, but we're trying to balance all three of those inputs.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, I just, it's not specifically related to this, but I just wonder about our relationship with our cousins to the north in Horowhenua. So when we're having issues with our pools, do we actively promote theirs as an alternative, like the Bin Aquatic Centre? And ditto, do we have a relationship with the Horowhenua, so when they've got a major thing happening, that we can promote our pools for them?
Thanks, Council. I can assure you that Steve down the back there is under the screen. He is deeply involved in the regional and national industry. Highly respected, highly experienced, and he is deeply connected with both Horowhenua and Porirua. And when we do have that stuff, he talks to them.
No more questions? No. All right. So we have some recommendations here that we note the Asset Management Plan Aquatics at Enclosure 1. Approve in principle the Asset Management Plan as the basis for long-term planning. And we note that funding options will be presented as part of the process for the long-term plan 2024. Do I have a mover for those recommendations, please? Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Pravanov. Thank you. Councillor Wilson, right of introduction. Waived? Any discussion? Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, just quickly, reiterating again, it's just great to see these things coming through, these asset management plans. Thank you very much, Mike, and your teams and General Council officers. Great to be getting that clear understanding of what we have, how it's looked after, but also taking a proactive approach of where we're going in the future. So I really appreciate the information. So I just, again, wanted to voice that as it was on my notes, but thank you very much.
Thank you for the reiteration. Any other discussion? Oh, Councillor Mayor Holbrook. Yeah.
With your leave, Madam Chair, I'd like to go slightly off topic.
Oh, I don't know about that.
And while we've got the word aquatics in front of us, I'd just like to thank Steve and the team for the amazing 10th anniversary celebrations,
yes,
which happened at the Aquatics Centre recently.
with the
And
amazing photos that accompany.
congratulate the Chief Executive on a successful
Plunge?
plunge off the
Which made the front page of the paper, I
the
think,
flying
didn't it?
fox. So, but in all seriousness, it was so wonderful, and particularly the tree planting as well that happened around the outside, just really meaningful, and a good opportunity to reflect on the wonderful asset management that we have in this space, which enables us to have such excellent facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any other discussion? In that case, Councillor Wilson, do you wish to say anything further? Publicly? Did you wish to say anything further about your right of reply for the motion? No. Right, in that case, I shall put this to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Now, we're getting close to morning tea time. Can we smash out the next item on the agenda before we break? Which means we hopefully will limit the discussion. All right. Darren's going to introduce this item for us. Thank you. Contracts under delegated authority.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, Sean Mallon's not too well today, so I'll do my best to live up to his double standards. Yeah, I'll take the report as read, and if there's no questions similar to what we've had, happy to move on. But if there are, I'm happy to take some questions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 6 on page 19 talks to Coastal Science and Engineering Service for Takatai Kapiti. Could you please get some clarity what that is? Is this the hazard aspect of things that's the next stage as such? Or I just want to just get a bit of clarity on that one.
I'm going to look to Chris, who's picked up Takatai Kapiti for us on this one.
So effectively, that relates to phase 1 of work that's been underway. So it is the engagement with the CAP and developing the vulnerability assessments that you're referring to, which will go into landing a coastal risk hazard final assessment. Well, the way that this has been set up is the Jacobs report and volumes 1 and 2 were completed as part of a phase 1 piece, and this is called phase 2, but it's the first contract that will go through around that final piece. So there's been a set of steps to make sure that we are rigorously and robustly managing the costs that goes through this process, very mindful of affordability and making sure that we're squeezing the lemon as we go through. So we're very much containing each segment of work that we undertake in this space.
Is this part of the sort of expert advice part of you've got the CAP panel and you've got the other panel there as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe what I can say is that we've got a briefing coming up on the 21st where we're going to be having, I'm calling it a layperson's step through the science, and I'll make sure that when we have that discussion, I just convey how the contracts we have in place are leaning into the steps we're taking through that science journey, I'm calling it.
Lovely.
Because out of context, it doesn't make sense. There's a lot sitting there. So won't be able to summarise that in 5 minutes today.
That's great. And also number 10, just wanted some clarity. It says consenting and inspection. Is this when we sort of subcontract that work out with regards to us getting consenting inspections for consents that come through as such? Do we have like a staff base for that, and this is the excess requirement to that?
Yep, thank you. Look, there's a really good email that that James Jefferson has shared that goes to those points. So as part of our accreditation process, we're required to maintain our competency standards, 1, 2, 3, at different levels. So depending on the work, if you look at residential and commercial, very, very different. So having these consultants 100% cost recovered, they are able to provide that capacity for us as required. Resource consent's the same, yes.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I had a couple of inquiries. One was related to, we are going to be having a broader discussion about takatai, yep, and the cost of that. Just under when that contract was awarded to Jacobs, there were no tenders and no local content involved, and so that always raises a bit of a concern for me. On number 7, the wastewater treatment plant, just where the budget is 400,000. So I'm always interested to know whether the budget is, or if that's an is or a was. So once you've got a tender, and there was just the one tender for that, and so the budget now fits in quite nicely with the tender. But did the tender fit in nicely with the budget? So it's chicken and egg, I guess, but which came first? So, and it sort of concerns me a bit when you only get one tender. If that's so, how much of a revision was there required on the budget, or did that actually come within?
Thanks, Nigel. I'm going to lean into Glenn, who's sitting behind you on this one, because it's infrastructure. But we set budgets before we go to the market. But of course, we do our due diligence in how we go about setting those budgets.
Through you, Madam Chair, yeah, just reiterating what the Chief Exec said, we do set the budgets before we go to tender. In this case, the budget was reasonably accurate. You'll see in one of the other contracts we let, we were slightly under, or in fact under, with our estimation. So we win some and we lose some. Certainly, as we get into the more specialist jobs, we're a smaller supply market. It can be harder to get the estimates as accurate as we sometimes would like.
Sorry, and my last question just relates to the Paraparumu wastewater treatment plant. And I'm not having a crack at Pritchard Civil at all. That's terrific. But the price excludes contingency, and I'm interested to know how much the contingency is, because historically, as a council, we've been famous for making the contingency almost a certainty. And sometimes when tenders come in, the tender comes in low with an expectation that the contingency is going to get spent. So I'm just kind of interested, especially when you're talking about 1.7 million, which is just coincides very nicely with what the budget was. But the budget is 1,750,000. So if the contingency gets used, or almost any of it gets used, it's going to blow the budget out. So I'm interested to know, okay, is there an expectation that there's going to be a significant budget blowout on that particular job?
Thanks again. Good question. Normally contingencies historically 10 to 15%, but when you look at what is happening in the market now, anything 30, 40, 50%, and you've seen some of the contracts that we've brought back recently, specifically into some of our big projects where we've seen some real escalations. I was listening to an article earlier in the week, and it talked about the Sydney Opera House. When that was built, the budget was 7 million, the cost was 97 million. Yeah, and that's what we are now starting to experience, not just here, but nationally and internationally. So that's the I guess that's a generalisation, that comment in response to your question. Glenn might have a specific in there, but I think sitting at that general comment is the best approach for that for now.
Yeah. Sorry. Just to follow up to that, is that so only $20,000 of the $19,769 gets spent out of contingency and you've reached budget, right? So given that that almost certainly is going to be a significant hit against the budget, I'm just wondering about where the trade-off amount comes from. So say, for instance, even if it was 10%, that's like about another $150,000, and so that $150,000 is coming out of somewhere else. So that's my concern, is just that when we've got a budget, so maybe the budget needs to be, should the budget reflect the possibility of contingency? That's all. Right.
Was that a question? Was that a question or a comment?
Nah, just a comment.
All right, okay, thank you. All right, Councillor Provanov.
Yes, thank you. So this is also in relation to phase 2 of the Coastal Science and Engineering Services, and relates to Jacob. So in here it's got, they were originally appointed to phase 1. So my question there is, what were they appointed to do? What was the cost of that, and did they deliver what they were appointed to do? That's my first set of questions.
Do you want me to answer that, Joe? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So this is particular to phase 2. This report doesn't talk about phase 1. If you would like us to bring that information to you, happy to do that, or perhaps we can cover that in the briefing that is coming to you, which talks about Takatai Kapiti in its totality, going back to 2014 with its inception.
So thank you for that. It does actually mention phase 1. I have to say, I've asked this question 3 times over about the last 3 months, and I haven't even had a response to my emails. Thank you.
Right, okay. Mayor Holbrook.
Yeah, so I just wanted to go back to one of the previous questions, which wasn't, I don't know if it was a question, but the assertion was made that we are setting these budgets with the contingency as a part of the budget that we expect to spend. We do end up spending the contingency often because of cost escalations, but I want just an assurance from staff that the actual spend is what we actually intend to spend on the budget, and the contingency is that. It's a contingency in case costs go up. Could I have a response from staff around that? Because I think that's quite a kind of serious assertion to make in terms of the way we're setting budgets for our projects.
Thanks, Your Worship. You're correct. The budget contains contingency, but the contingency is for any overruns. So it is not the principal component of what the tender or the contract looks like. There is always that contingency, which is a plus component, not included in.
Can you switch your microphone off, please? Mayor Holbrook. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, this is a clarity question again. Look, I'm just focusing on that point. My apologies for that. But in regards to the budget as such, there is built-in contingency in that of around what the 10-15% mark as part of that. Just the clarity on that.
Sorry, yeah. So the contingency, the contingency is plus. So if your budget is $500,000, there's a contingency component in that. That might be 10-15%, and your tender job comes in at 450 or 400 plus contingency. If that makes sense.
All right. No other questions? No. In that case, there's a recommendation that the Strategy, Operations and Finance Committee notes that there were 7 contracts accepted under delegated authority over $250,000 for the period 1 April to 31 September 2023. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Halliday. Right of introduction, Councillor Wilson. Waived. Any discussion, Councillor Halliday?
Sorry. Look, I just wanted to express appreciation on the openness of this report with regards to putting these in there. I don't know if we've seen them. I don't know if we've actually seen them in the past. And it's great to know that these are there. So no, just appreciated them coming to the table.
Any other discussion? No, Councillor Wilson?
Just to just to reiterate what Councillor Halliday has said, I think with all of these things, as much transparency as possible is a very valuable tool for everybody. Councils are frequently accused of doing deals and behind closed doors and all sorts of things, and I think this is it's a transparent process, and we should celebrate that. I think it's a good thing.
Right, thank you. Right, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. 10-minute break for morning tea. Thank you. See you again soon. Back at 20 past.
Just a note, we are covering off on